Hello, hello, hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. It is so very good to be here with each and every one of you on this Sunday. I'm excited about this series, as you already know. So let's tap in. And of course, let us begin by centering ourselves. And I invite you to affirm these words of truth with me. I welcome the spirit of truth into my mind and let it grow in my heart. Thank you, God, in, through, and as me. Amen, Ashe, and so it is. So it is. Yes, yes. So this month we are looking at the Gospel According to Rev Ike, and I want to create a very simple foundation right here and right now because this is important. Reverend Ike referred to the spiritual philosophy that he taught, which is New Thought philosophy. He referred to it as the science of living. And in his text, Reverend Ike's Secrets for Health, Joy, and Prosperity for You, a Science of Living guide, he explains the science of living in this way. The science of living is the teaching of how a person may live a positive, dynamic, healthy, happy, successful, prosperous life through the consciousness of the presence of God, infinite good, already within every man, every person. The science of living is not church doctrine, religious dogma, or theology. In the science of living, God is not someone else, somewhere else, sometime else. But God is the presence of infinite good within you, here and now. And this presence is within everyone. And I anchor us with that understanding because what many people have said Reverend Ike is or is about, this is it right here. This is the teaching. And if I had read this to you and said it was Eric Butterworth, you would have accepted, oh yeah, that's Eric Butterworth. If I had read this to you and said it was Ernest Holmes, Charles Fillmore, Neville Goddard, this one, or some other white man, you're like, oh yeah, that makes sense. That's new thought, sound new thought teaching. This is the science of living. It is New Thought teaching. It is what Reverend Ike taught day in and day out, week in and week out. But not only what he taught, it's what he lived day in and day out, week in and week out. It's what he embodied, which is why he so famously said, you can't lose with the stuff I use. This is the stuff he was using. And so you may recall last month I referred to a beautiful soul by the name of Arlan Hamilton. I referred to something that she had written in her book, Your First Million. And I want to bring you to that book because there's a chapter. It's the second chapter in that book that she titles Radical Self-Belief. And when I read it, I immediately thought about this series and this particular sermon. Now, first, I'm going to give you a little bit of her bio because I think that's important as we're in Black History Month. Arlan Hamilton is a queer Black woman who built a venture capital fund from the ground up while homeless. She is the founder and managing partner of Backstage Capital, a fund that is dedicated to minimizing disparities in the tech industry by investing in high potential women, BIPOC, and LGBTQ plus founders. Since its founding in 2015, Backstage Capital has raised $30 million and has invested in more than 200 startups. I also want to add, this is a Black woman that billionaire Mark Cuban listens to. And so in her chapter, Radical Self-Belief, she writes this. Radical self-belief is the knowledge that whatever you're being paid, it's not enough. Whatever power you have, you can always have more. And there's more than enough to go around. We've been taught that we can't be what we can't see. But I believe this mindset is limiting. We have to understand that we can be anything. That's a good word. Now, you all may know, if you've been rocking with me for a while, I don't actually like the use of the word radical. I understand the use of it. The reason why I don't like the use of the word radical is because it indicates an extreme and oftentimes even indicates some sort of supernatural ability. right? But actually self-belief is something that's very natural and normal and necessary. And so again, while I understand the use of the word radical, people use radical self-care, right? We just need to practice self-care. That's natural, normal, and necessary. Self-belief is also natural, necessary, and normal, and it's something that we must practice. And so as I read that chapter and read that specific definition as she shares her understanding of radical self-belief, I thought about Rev Ike. And I said, Rev Ike would appreciate this chapter because what she's writing about, she's describing something that Rev Ike has been teaching for almost forever. What he calls positive self-image psychology. And this is actually a better term than radical self-belief. In his text, which I'll give you the title of again, Rev Ike's Secrets for Health, Joy, and Prosperity for You, a Science of Living Study Guide, he writes this: positive self-image psychology is seeing oneself in one's own mind, being, doing, and having the good one desires. If I could describe my teaching, my philosophy in one term most succinctly, it would be positive self-image psychology. And positive self-image psychology is what we all need. It's not a matter of one race needing it or another race needing something else. We all need positive self-image psychology. In this philosophy, which I also call the science of positive self-awareness, I teach the individual to define their ideals and to project their ideals into reality by means of visualization, affirmation, and meditation. This is using mind power. This is the stuff I use. And Rev Ike also says, the more that you learn to work your mind, the less you'll have to work your behind. So you hear us talk about all the time this idea of the struggle and the hustle. And you could go back, there's an old series we did, Hustle and Flow. Let go of the hustle, embrace the flow. I say all the time that the mental work is the work. When you learn to work your mind, as Rev Ike said, I love it, the less you'll have to work your behind. But because we have not fully tapped into the reality of mind power, as we have not tapped into the full reality of positive self-image psychology, that's why we're working hard. That's why we're working by the sweat of our brow. That's why we're struggling and hustling. We write down our goals, then we go work hard to make our goals happen. And that's not metaphysics. That's actually absolutely against how this thing works. And so understanding positive self-image psychology, understanding what Arlan Hamilton refers to as radical self-belief, my mind went to a spelling bee. And there's a moment in the spelling bee that I absolutely love. It can be riveting, particularly if you're watching the National Spelling Bee, the Scripps Spelling Bee. And, of course, the words they're pretty easy in the beginning. And eventually, as you go through, lots of kids, they mess up, they miss the word and start to weed out. And you're getting down to the last two contestants. And things get tense, right? And there's a hush in the crowd. And one of the things that I love about that moment is the contestant has a few options at their disposal. Right? The word may be a word they've never heard of, or they may have heard something akin to it. And so they have the option to ask questions. They have the option to ask clarifying questions. They can ask for an alternate pronunciation, which may help them spell the word. They can ask, what's the part of speech? Is it a noun, adjective, adverb, or verb? They can ask for information about the word's origin, which may connect them to another word that they know and they can spell it. And my favorite one is they can ask for the word's definition. And so my question to you today is, may I have the definition, please? What is your self-definition? How do you define yourself? How do you define your family? How do you define your life? What is your self-definition? Because as we understand positive self-image psychology, your self-definition is what determines the outcome of your life. And if you don't define yourself, the world will. The world has defined who Black people are and are not. The world defined who women are and are not. The world defined who indigenous people are and are not. The world defined who differently abled people are and are not. The world defined who LGBTQ plus people are and are not. If you don't define yourself, the world will. May I have the definition, please? What is your self-definition? And in last week's message, You Reap Just What You Sow, I expanded your awareness that the list of what you're writing, what you're crafting and creating, this list of what you want, that you're reading morning, noon, and night, it's making use of the principle of sowing and reaping. That coming back to it every day is akin to sowing seed. It's akin to tending to the garden. It's akin to watering the garden. And eventually, inevitably, because it's a principle, you reap what you sow, you will reap the benefits of that sowing. Well, if you have not realized it yet, this list is also your self-definition. In writing down what you want to be, do, and have, you are saying to life, this is who I am. This is my self-definition. May I have the definition, please? Now, if that gives you pause, good. Because I recognize, even as excited as you were about last month's sermon, there's still some tweaking that needs to happen, and there's still some expanding of your awareness that needs to happen. Remember, the list of the things that you're writing and reading, it's a living document. It's fluid. And as your awareness of these principles expand, the list and the power and the joy and the emotion behind the list will expand. And as your awareness of infinite possibility expands, so your list will expand. And so Rev Ike says that we must define ourselves. He writes this: the individual must come to a point of self-definition and positive self-awareness. In the science of living, we teach that if you want to be something, first see yourself in your mind being it. Define yourself as the one who is doing that which you want to do. Define yourself as the one who is having that which you want to have, and then visualize. See yourself in the theater of your own mind, being, doing, and having the good thing which you desire. Also, you must use the technique of affirmation. You must affirm that you are that which you desire. And you may have heard something that's very familiar, that idea of the theater of your own mind. Because if you've studied or read Neville Goddard, you've heard him use that same phraseology. And what we know is that Reverend Ike studied Neville Goddard and really loved the teachings of Neville Goddard. And I think one of the things that Neville Goddard brings us to is this understanding of visualization. But what's important to note, and there's also a biography that was just released at the end of the year on Reverend Ike's life, which I absolutely love and has been so powerful to read and understand. One of the things that I've learned through reading more about his life is that Reverend Ike as a child had an innate understanding of visualization. And while he was living in great poverty, and while he was living in an experience that he did not want, he would lay in bed as a child and visualize himself being, doing, and having the life that he desired. And so later, as he comes in contact with Neville Goddard, he's like, yeah, I understand that. I've been doing that. I know what that is. And so it gave him a language to define and codify what he was already being, doing, and having. As he said, you can't lose with the stuff I use. And so it's interesting when he talks about this idea of entering the theater of your mind and seeing it and tapping into the realization. And it brings me to the idea of the song, I Believe I Can Fly. And although Robert Kelly has done some awful things, there's a principle behind the song that transcends him and his actions. Because what we read in this song is inviting us to use positive self-image psychology. It's inviting us to self-define. In the song, we read, and I'm just tapping into the power piece of the song, I believe. So there's the first thing, which is faith. And it's a belief in the power that is within you. Your self-definition, I believe that this is possible. I believe that this will happen. I believe that I can be it. I can do it. I can have it. But it's not just I believe. It's believe I can. The truth is, whether you believe you can or you can't, you're right. because your belief makes it so. Your thinking makes it so. So I believe, and then I can. I can be this. I can do this. I can have it. I believe I can. I know I can. And then it says, I think about it every night and day. Well, what are we talking about? What are we doing? What are we doing with the list that we have? We are reading it morning, noon, and night, every day. And then what is the other piece? Again, it says, I believe, I can. And then I see myself. I don't want to get ahead of myself because we're going to break down some of this in next week's sermon, the power behind I believe and the power behind I see. But I just want to give you this piece for now, the affirmation of believing I can, the affirmation of I think about it morning, noon, and night, every night and day, as the song says. Again, I believe I can, and then I see myself. So as you're crafting your list of what you want, it's important that now you step into this vibration of, I see myself being it. I see myself having it. I see myself living it. I see myself experiencing it. I believe I can. I know I can. And I think about it morning, noon, and night. And so as you have your list and you're reading it, you see yourself doing it and having it. The other opportunity now is to write, read, and recite affirmations that align with your self-definition. May I have the definition, please? And this is where we get into your I am power. This is why we had to have the song. We had to hear the song, the I am prayer today, because this is the simplest way we can use affirmations for self-definition. And Rev Ike writes this about the power of I am. Whatever you add to I am, that is what you become. That's why I am against anybody teaching the so-called poor people to say, I am poor. You know, it has become somewhat popular. It has become somewhat of a stylish cliche, if you please, to say poor people. If you don't want to be poor people, stop defining yourself as poor people. Define yourself as prosperous. When you say I am poor, that is your self-definition. That is your self-awareness. And you are never going to be able to experience anything better than or anything other than your own self-definition. Again, as we are in Black History Month on Max, there's a wonderful documentary on the powerful, powerful soul, Nikki Giovanni. And one of the things that I love, and she does it several times throughout the documentary in referring to her health, she'll say, oh yeah, well, they say I have so-and-so. They say what's going on. In other words, they are trying to define me, but my self-definition is not in alignment with what they're saying. And this is powerful, right? Because if you think about this idea of poor people, there's a they that categorizes people as poor. First of all, if we just categorize poverty around the amount of money you have, that's a temporary condition. Temporary, how much money you have or don't have. That's a temporary condition. So why would we define ourselves according to a temporary condition? It doesn't make sense. And so the best thing you can do, if you don't have enough, if you don't have the amount of money that you think you should have, you want to define yourself based on what it is you want to be, what it is you want to do, and it's what it is that you want to have. Because again, the I ams, whatever you add to I am, that is what you become. You are never going to be able to experience anything better than or anything other than your own self-definition. Unless, as I said earlier, as your self-definition is what determines the outcome of your life. And if you don't define yourself, the world will, unless you accept the world's definition. And by default, that's what so many people out here are doing, right? You can never experience anything better than or other than your own self-definition. But the other than is, it's still your self-definition. You've just accepted it. This is who they say I am, so this is who I am. This is as far as they say I can go, so this is as far as I can go. This is as much as they say I can achieve, and so this is what I will achieve. And one of the beautiful things about celebrating Black history is the reality that every soul that we celebrate, when we celebrate Black intelligence and Black genius and Black artistry and Black creativity, every one of those souls, made a definition of themselves that was counter to what the world was saying, that was counter to what life was saying, what life experience was saying, that was counter to what governments were saying, that was counter to what governors were saying, that was counter to what mayors were saying, that was counter to what teachers were saying. I'm reminded in this moment, as it's depicted in the Malcolm X movie directed by Spike Lee, that scene where a young Malcolm Little is being talked to by that old teacher, talking about Jesus was a carpenter. That's a nice job for you. If he had accepted that definition and made that his self-definition, we wouldn't be talking about him today. He would not have been a world changer. His life would not have been a life that continues to inspire souls all over the world, day in and day out, year in and year out. And so it's true. You cannot experience anything better than or anything other than your own self-definition. And it's important that you define yourself. May I have the definition, please? For any of you that are tapping into this sermon series for the first time, and you hear me talking about this list, and you hear me talking about last month's series, please go to last month's series, My Biggest Dream, and tap into the vibration of that. In the second week, I share the process of writing down what you want and crafting that and beginning to read it daily. We also have other supports that I share with you to support you in developing the habit of reading it daily and coming back to this list. You must define yourself. You must know what you want. If you do not know what you want, if you do not declare what you want, if you do not write it down and read it daily, the world, the external world, the 5 sense world will define it for you. And I got news for you. Out here in this world, they are not affirming that you're worthy. Out here in this world, they're not telling you that you matter. Out here in this world, they're not telling you that you're smart and you're beautiful. Out here in this world, they're not telling you that you're prosperous and abundant. Out here in this world, they're not telling you that you can be, do, or have what you want. Out here in this world, they're not telling you that, but I'm telling you it today. And so if you cannot, in this moment, fully accept your own self-definition, hear the words coming through me now. You are prosperous. You are happy. You are healthy. You are whole. There is a power and presence in you that I call the infinite, unlimited, omnipotent God that is working in, through, and as you. You have great power. You have great possibility. Write from that power. Write from that possibility and know it is yours. Anything you put behind I am, you must become. May I have the definition, please? Who are you? Who is you? Who are you being? What are you doing? What do you have? By activating this principle of self-definition, you change your circumstances. And we read this from Rev Ike. The only way that you are going to become something else or become what you want to be is to redefine yourself as that which you want to become. I was thinking about it as I was crafting the sermon. Even if you're single and you want to be in a relationship, affirming I am and single will ensure that you're going to remain single. So your I am may need to be, I am meeting the love of my life. Right? I am doing the thing that I want to do. I am being the thing that I want to be. I am having, right? I am drawing to me a loving, romantic relationship and partner, right? It's important that your I ams are what you want to become. He goes on, change your circumstances by changing your self-image, by changing your self-definition. The Bible says, let the weak say, I am strong. I like to add to that, let the poor say, I am rich. Let the sick say, I am well. This is redefining oneself. Let the weak one redefine himself as strong. Let the poor one redefine himself as rich, and so on. It's affirmation time. You know, I know that there are health challenges happening within the community. I know that all over everywhere, folks is coughing and got stuff and they don't know what's going on. I invite you here and now to just affirm, I am well. I am well. I am well. May I have the definition, please? And this month, we're going to tap into the vibration of what physical healing is all about. We can't teach Rev Ike and not talk about physical healing. And so this is just a beginning. If you're, whatever is going on within you, you get to define the truth of who and what you are, not the doctors. Affirm, I am well. I'm almost done. Going back to Arlan Hamilton in her book, Your First Million, she writes about her success. When I said in 2015 that I was going to invest in 100 companies founded by women, people of color, or those in the LGBT plus community by 2020, people laughed. At that time, this statement was seen as absurd by some. It had been taken as gospel that the reason women, people of color, and the LGBTQ plus founders were underrepresented in the startup industry was simply that there just weren't that many founders in those groups. Hear this. She self-defined. What did she write down? She said, I'm going to invest in 100 companies founded by women, people of color, or those in the LGBTQ plus community by 2020, so in 5 years. And people laughed. I told you, the world's definition, the world don't believe what you believe, and that's okay. I'm reminded, it's one of my favorite scenes and one of my favorite lines in the Matrix Revolutions, where Morpheus is having the conversation with Commander Locke. You can go back also to that sermon I taught on it, Damn It, Morpheus. And Commander Locke, he says, damn it, Morpheus, you know, everybody doesn't believe as you do. And Morpheus responded, my beliefs don't require them to. And so when I'm asking you for your self-definition, you also need to be in the position of recognizing your beliefs cannot require other people to believe it too. She wrote this down. This is what I'm going to do in 5 years, and people laughed. The statement was seen as absurd, but she goes on. People told me I couldn't do it, that there wouldn't be enough viable companies to invest in. I said to myself, it is done. Woo, Lord have mercy. This thing preaches itself. This ain't the Bible. This ain't, some sacred text. This is a book called Your First Million by a beautiful soul that is walking the earth right now that is telling you this is how it is, this is how I did it, and this is how you can do it too. I said to myself, it is done. It is already a reality. Lord have mercy. In 2018, Backstage Capital invested in its 100th company 2 years earlier than my estimate. As of May of 2023, I've invested in more than 200 companies led by underrepresented founders. May I have the definition, please? She writes, self-belief doesn't magically make all the systemic issues go away, but it does brace the fall when you're being shoved down. It's like having the right gear for the task. If the task is success, self-belief is essential equipment. And that's all we're saying today. I'm not even getting into, yes, there's things going on out here in the world and there's systemic things and we're working to create a world that works for everyone. That's true. But what I know to be true is that your beliefs do not have to require the world to comply with your beliefs. Your self-belief is so powerful. It is essential equipment if success is the task. Arlan Hamilton defined herself. The world had a definition of what was possible, and to them it was absurd, but Arlan Hamilton defined herself. The world had a definition of what was possible for a queer black homeless woman, but Arlan Hamilton defined herself. The world had a definition for why women, people of color, and LGBTQ plus founders were underrepresented in startups, but Arlan Hamilton did not hold that definition. She goes on and writes, every one of us deserves to be here. Every person in the United States has inherited the same claim to wealth. All of this is ours, and we have to take our share. We must leave behind the scarcity mindset and embrace an abundance mindset. There is enough for everyone, and that includes us. That includes you. That includes me. That includes you, and you, and you, and you, and you. Does all of this sound entitled? good. What I look forward to seeing in the future is a lot more entitled black women. I know entitlement is seen as a negative personality trait, but I would love to see it embodied by people who have been caught up in imposter syndrome for so long. I'd love to see those previously unsure and insecure women stepping forward and saying, I deserve to be here. I deserve to be invested in. I deserve success. And you will listen to me. And you know, here at CSC, we step beyond deserving, because even when we say deserve, oftentimes that idea of deserve still has us thinking that we have to do something. Deserve still has us thinking about this idea of we have to earn it, that we have to dot every I and cross every T. The truth is you are worthy. You are worthy. You are worthy. You are worthy of being here. You are worthy to be invested in. You are worthy of success, and you will be listened to. Affirmation time. I am entitled to miracles. I am entitled to the life I want. I am worthy of miracles. I am worthy of the life I want. May I have the definition, please? Your self-definition determines your life. If you do not define who you are, if you do not define who you is, if you do not define who you be, if you do not define what you are doing, what you are having, the world by default defines it for you. And the thing is, the world will never define the greatest piece of you. It's not going to. We're grateful to have mentors and family members and parents and elders that have spoken life into us. That's important. We need that as children. And then eventually we have to define it for ourselves. You can be, do, and have anything. Anything, anything. I told you last month, I'll tell you again this month. This is positive self-image psychology. This is positive self-awareness, defining it for yourself, seeing yourself being, doing, and having it, visualizing, and then creating affirmations that affirm the life that you want. So your next step, as you have your list, what are the affirmations that align? What are the I am statements that align? Come back, listen to the I am prayer. Sing along. And when I'm asking you, who are you? Tell me who you are. I am brave. I am beautiful. I am empowered. I am loved. I am worthy. I am holy. I am perfect, whole, and complete. I am happy, healthy, and whole. I am rich. I am well. 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 Because whatever you put behind your I ams, you become. Oh, I am so grateful and thankful for this teaching. I told y'all we've designed this quarter specifically, starting in January, my biggest dream, and with the powerful teachings of Rev Ike, that's pulling from all of what we did in January and taking us on up a little higher. And we're going to move forward and take that into March in a powerful way. We're holding your hand through this whole thing. But there is something that you must do. I can't decide what you want for you. I can't write it down for you. I can't read it morning, noon, and night for you. I can't think about it morning, noon, and night for you. But I will open every door and show you. This whole home belongs to you. I'm hearing the words of scripture. In my Father's house, there are many mansions. There are many mansions available to you. You are entitled to it. Don't be afraid of that word. You are entitled to miracles. You are entitled to the life you want, the life that you define. You are worthy of miracles. You are worthy of the life you want and the life that you define. May I have the definition, please? To this truth, we say amen, ashe, and so it is. So it must be.